Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1983 ridiculous film Surf 2. This one's put out by Vinegar Syndrome, and I had a really fun time with this film. It's very wacky, it's very over the top. You can kind of tell that it's just meant to be ridiculous in a pretty fun way, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the film. This is one of my favorite pieces of slipcover art from Vinegar Syndrome. I love this. I was actually able to get this for $10 during their 10 for 10 sale, so well worth the money. Anyone wanted to see the back, there you go, because honestly, I never saw that in the film. That's just like a little extra something that never was in there. But let's talk about Surf 2. Oh, I have not yet watched the documentary making of, which is called The Stupidest Film Ever Made. I wouldn't say it's the stupidest film ever made. I've definitely seen stupider films because it makes sense for the premise that they're going for with the film. It's not just like all over the place, although it is very wacky and there is, it does seem kind of like all over the place at times, but it's intentional. Written and directed by Randall M. Badat, who wrote Hear No Evil, Born to Run, The Cutting Edge 3, Chasing the Dream, War Games, The Dead Code, and River World, which looks like it may be kind of a ripoff of Waterworld, which is weird because Waterworld wasn't very good. I didn't think it was very popular either. It has Eddie Deason in it, which I'm going to say up front, Eddie Deason is my favorite part of this film. If you don't know who he is, you would know his voice. You wouldn't necessarily know what he looks like. A lot of people may, but you would definitely know his voice. It's very specific. He's done a lot of voice acting. He's done The Polar Express. He's like the nerdy know-it-all kid in The Polar Express. He was on The Weird Al Show, which I thought was fun. I love Weird Al. Critters 2, The Main Course, Assault of the Killer Bimbos, Punky Brewster, A Polish Vampire in Burbank. He was in Grease and Grease 2. And the big one, Laser Blast. Yeah, if you haven't seen Laser Blast, that's a fun one. It also has in it Tom Villard, who I know best from his turn in Popcorn. I'm becoming a Tom Villard fan, I gotta tell you. His performance in Surf 2 is really good. His performance in Popcorn is even better. Sucks that he died at an early age. Also has Terry Kaiser in it. Most people know him from Weekend at Bernie's, but a lot of people watching this may know him best from Tammy and the T-Rex. Also Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. So great to see him in there, as well as Eric Stoltz, best known for films like Mask, Anaconda, The Prophecy, The Fly 2, and one that I think is really good, very underappreciated, Killing Zoe. Look into that one. Surf 1 does not exist. This is a Surf 2 without a Surf 1. This is not a sequel. It's just meant to be like a funny thing. I think actually there's like an alternate title. It's not just Surf 2. It's like Surf 2, the end of the trilogy. So you can just tell with that they were trying to be funny, that everything that's over the top and ridiculous is very much intentional with this film. It's just supposed to be zany and wacky and out there, and I appreciate it for that reason. It definitely says beach vibes in the beginning from the start with the music, very beachy music that they're using, and all the people having fun on the beach. It also sets up kind of like a fun atmosphere and feel for the film going into it, letting you know to expect you're going to have a good time. Like, you're going to have fun. This isn't a serious film. Just get ready to, cut loose to a degree and enjoy yourself. Although I will say, the footage, quality-wise, is a lot less than what you actually get from, when the film gets going. Things are pretty bad when you're getting bullied by band dorks. That's the first thing that occurred to me, because that's the first actual thing that happens in the story, is you're seeing this person in the marching band who falls down and is just getting stepped on by everyone in the marching band. And I was just like, man, it's bad when you're getting picked on by band dorks, which I don't say that because I believe that people who are in band are dorks. I was actually in band when I was up until high school, but I'm just saying for the time frame of this film, that was one of the tropes in these types of films, is like band people are dorks, and so I'm just going with that. What is with Johnny Big Head eating the fence? I think that's mainly just set up to show you for later on that he will eat anything, and he does, and that's obviously like a big setup for his eating competition with what's his name, Jocko, Surfer Zombie Jocko. I love that Principal Daddy-O says, "Yo mama," the first time you end up hearing him speak. Not only is his name Daddy-O as a principal, which is funny, but he says a yo mama joke, which, do people remember yo mama jokes? Still a very fond place in my heart for yo mama jokes, gotta be honest. Chief Boyardee and Deputy Underwear really gives you the idea what this film is about. It really gives you the idea that they're going for the ridiculous. They're going for comedy that's not low level funny or medium regular funny. It's over the top ridiculous zaniness. But I like the names. Chief Boyardee, Deputy Underwear. The Surf Punks are a very odd introduction, and it makes you wonder what part they'll end up playing in the whole film, honestly. Obviously, they're the ones who pick up the Buzz Cole in the beginning. They're the first group of the kind of surfer zombie servants for Menlo Schwartzer, the evil genius, Eddie Deazen's character. So, yeah. Jocko and Becker abducted to an underwater lair. I put, oh hell yeah. Because underwater layers, I think, are super cool. I'm into, like, underwater stuff in general. I think it's very interesting and cool. So I love the setup of this underwater layer situation. Plus, my favorite parts of the film are pretty much in the underwater layer. Like, seeing the setup, seeing all these devices that Menlo has created and all of his antics. Because, like I said in the beginning, Eddie Deazen was my favorite in this film. I just love those scenes. Gotta love that sex scene in the car when it's falling apart as it's rocking, which, by the way, I have never seen a car people are having sex in rock that way. Like, it was front and back and just parts falling off. Again, very over-the-top comedy. Gotta appreciate that. Kind of cool, but also odd with the split screen of Chuck and Bob having the exact same interactions with their parents at the exact same time. I couldn't figure out initially if that was like an actual split screen that they were doing, or the set was set up that way and they were actually like connected at first. But then the second time you end up seeing it, you see it from a side angle and it just goes right through. So you're able to see that it is like one set. Kind of cool filmmaking. And that's one of the big things about this film is when you take it for what it is and what it was basically going for, and the fact that it is just like wacky and over the top and ridiculous, it's actually, from a technical standpoint, done pretty well. Like, the costuming's good, the sets are good, the actual directing and cinematography is actually pretty good, the acting's pretty solid. Like, people would think it's just like a so bad it's good, but it's kind of more than a so bad it's good film in a way. Sure way to pick up ladies. Are you available for dating? Followed by immediately, are you clean? That's what I think Chuck said to the girls that they end up meeting, that they end up taking to the beach and being in the in that little shack thing that ends up getting shot up and having a grenade thrown into it. I don't really understand that whole situation, but some more over the top. You're not supposed to understand things. It's just very all over the place, really. Chuck and Bob are so into surfing that women popping their tops off right in front of them does very little to derail their surf talk. That moment is supposed to show you, well, in addition to getting some boobs into the film, it's supposed to show you that those two are so focused on surfing. Surfing is their lives. They are more interested in surfing than what your typical teen at that point is interested in sex. So they are just like surf, surf, surf on their mind. I like how people aren't that concerned when Jocko shows up and he's drinking motor oil. People's reactions in general in this film are very low-key for what's actually going on, but I think that's something that's kind of important for having a wacky, over-the-top movie like this. The characters don't react the way a normal person would. It's kind of normal to them to, like, create that environment that they need. Real quick, pause for horror hydration. Sorry, throat gets dry, especially with, like, sinus problems. So, Menlo is using his scientific creations to keep Sparkle good-looking in order to lure surfers to his lair for the Buzz Cola zombie treatment, which is fun. I like watching the Buzz Cola zombie treatment. That's a great time. I wish we would have seen more of that process and less footage of people actually surfing, which I'll kind of comment on that at the very end. But, yeah, so I guess her name was Florinda Budnick was her name initially when she was a nerd and was still with him. But she's a character. I don't know. Didn't really care about her that much. She's supposed to be that, like, I'm involved in the evil, but I'm also conflicted and kind of want to warn the nice people because I'm in this against my will, basically. Like, she still loves Menlo, but his revenge has, the revenge that he wants to take has changed him. But she still loves him to a degree, but she also doesn't like what he's doing, and it's this whole, like, torn character thing. But, I love how goofy and awkward Beaker is, played by Peter Isaacson. He was the science teacher, who ends up getting way more involved in this film toward the end than I expected, especially with how kind of sparse he is in the beginning of the film. But his character, his, like, goofy over-the-top acting, I really did like. He was pretty cool. The zombie surfers don't actually seem very useful. It kind of makes me wonder why Menlo actually even bothers making these zombie surfer guys, because they don't seem that useful. They're, like, I understand that they'll do what he tells them to do, but they don't seem to do it very well. Best scene in the scene where he's having his nice romantic meal with Sparkle, which, by the way, I just hate that name, Sparkle. But yeah. Making cola at an oil refinery. Who came up with this idea? But it also could actually be a play at how all companies are kind of poisoning people to some degree. That is something that was kind of like showing up in film at this time, and even before that, is this kind of distrust of companies, especially things like oil companies, who have had natural disasters publicly happen. Just like this idea of, like, distrust, and, like, they are not actually moral companies, they're just trying to make money, and so they kind of, like, sublet this space in their oil refinery to these guys, Chuck and Bob's dads, who want to make this cola, who obviously don't really know how to make cola, so they make something terrible and messed up. So yeah. Hard to figure out why Lindy Sue and Cindy Lou are with Chuck and Bob, because they don't seem to actually like each other, and they understand the fact that they're way more into surfing than they are into them. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I think it would have been a little bit better if their relationships were kind of more real. Not, I mean, like, you don't expect it from this, but, like, make them actually be closer, make them actually kind of like each other to some degree. It just kind of seemed like they were, like, acquaintances, The eating competition between Jocko and Johnny Bighead goes on for quite a while. I did have fun with it, but it just really does keep going. Although this is the moment where I should probably tell you, there are two versions on this. There's the theatrical cut on one disc, and then there's the director's cut on the other. Obviously, I watched the director's cut because always watch the director's cut. That's more what their vision was, less what the studio wanted or whoever released it. So yeah. So maybe that eating competition in the theatrical cut is pared down some. I do like how Beaker is excited to dissect the zombie surfer punk that Chuck, Bob, and Sparkle end up bringing to him. He's literally like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this all my life, to use these tools I've been picking up, not just to do taxidermy, which he has a lot of interesting taxidermy things, which you get the idea he uses as pets when he's like, Sparkle's holding the squirrel, kind of stroking it, and then later on he's kind of like lovingly holding this taxidermied parrot. Kind of funny. It's so ridiculous and over the top with all the stuff they end up finding inside that body, though, when the dissection actually happens. Again, it goes on too long. They're pulling too much stuff out of there, in my opinion, like the mirror and the car parts, and a little too ridiculous for me, but sorry, my mouth is getting really dry. My apologies. My favorite parts have to be whenever they show the zany antics of Menlo in his underwater lair. Bears repeating, it is wonderful. Also really love his dance moves. Menlo can get down in the best way possible. I love his dance moves. They show that a few times. Ridiculous that nobody picks up on Menlo under the table when they're having that meeting where Beaker is trying to appeal to the adults of the town about the dangers of Buzz Cola. Like, anyone would have seen him under the table. But it's one of those things where, like, back when this film came out, people just went along with premises of films, and they're like, this is the world created, this is how things are, just go with whatever they're throwing at you. But viewing experiences have changed a lot since, and people are more looking for realism now in film, which, I mean, that includes me as well. But to a lot of degrees, I think it's a bad change, to be honest. It lets us enjoy films less and makes us more critical, which I know that's kind of ridiculous hearing it come from me because I'm critical of films, like that's what I do. But when I am just watching a film for pleasure, I'm usually just going along with whatever. I mean, case in point, one of my favorite guilty pleasure films is Hackers. Like, you have to just go with everything in that film, you know? Took a long time to get the motive for Menlo's evil plans. I do think that should have been maybe revealed a little bit earlier in the film, but I guess they needed to pair it with Sparkle being revealed as Florinda Budnick. But they allude to that early on when, excuse me, when Menlo shows her the picture in the yearbook and is like, do you want to go back to this? Do you want to look like this? But I guess you don't know for sure. I did laugh. This is bad, but I did laugh when Bob's father said about his son when he was surfing, I'm going to beat that kid like I don't know him. Obviously, this is something you wouldn't really joke about nowadays, but with the tone of this film, it came off as just funny to me. You're kind of primed to just laugh at almost anything because it is set up as this ridiculous, zany, wild, comedic film. So for some reason, like the way it was phrased, the way the line was delivered, it just hit me in that way, and I had to laugh. Do you know what it's like to be the only guy on the beach with tits? I thought that was pretty funny, that line by Menlo when he was talking about the chemical that was slipped into his cola, which started this whole revenge thing. Yeah, that was a hilarious line, and then he reveals, you know, having the bra on under his shirt. But I'm going to be honest, when he says the only guy at the beach with tits, I've been to beaches before, and there are a lot of guys who just still have tits at the beach. Gonna be honest, a lot of, you know, most people are shirtless at the beach. Well, most guys are shirtless at the beach, and, you know, I'm not trying to body shame. I'm just saying he's wrong in saying he would be the only one there. Chief Boyardee actually does end up being effective enough in the end. They make the arrest. The day is saved. Kind of surprised about that. I thought he was just going to bumble through and not be effective at all in the end. So the effects of Buzz Cola actually do wear off. That means that in the end of this film, everything's good. The town can go back to normal. We get our very happy ending. All good. That's nice. This film is just wacky and all over the place, but I dig it. As you can probably tell from the tone of my entire review, I had a fun time with this. I like it. I'm glad I was able to get this for $10 and excited to watch the documentary. For what it is, it's technically well done. I already talked about that. Joe Bob would say about this, though, gratuitous surfing. In his drive-in totals, he would say gratuitous surfing, because that's one thing that popped into my head when I was seeing all these surf scenes. There were so many surf scenes. I think that's the thing that probably bothered me the most in the film, because those are just kind of boring in my opinion. The surf scenes at the end, though, during the competition, like the big tournament, like those are the more fun ones because you have stuff actually going on where it's like this fight between Chuck Bob and the zombie surfers. So that was fine, but everything else, like they threw in too much surfing. This is a typical theme of the time that you can't trust companies. They're always up to no good or just not caring about the negative impact they have on people. Just kind of reiterating that. That is the main theme at play here, other than let's just be over the top, let's be ridiculous, let's kind of just make this ridiculous movie. And I'm glad they did make it, and I'm glad that Vinegar Syndrome picked it up and gave it this very nice looking release. It does look great, as you would assume with anything done by Vinegar Syndrome. So awesome Vinegar Syndrome on doing this one. Really enjoyed it. So as an actual film, like in the pantheon of all films, out of 5 stars, I'd probably give it 1.5 stars. But as like a so bad it's good, I'm going to go with 3 stars. I thought about going 3.5, but I don't think it's quite there for me. So I'm going to go with 3 stars. But this is the point where I would love to hear your thoughts on this film. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you in between on it? Go ahead and put it in the comments. Let's talk. Do me a quick favor before you're done with this video, though. Hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Excuse me. I would greatly appreciate that. Also, hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up videos, which I'm doing at least 3 or 4 a week. Minimum 3, usually 4. Sometimes a little bit more than that, depending on what's going on. But join this nerdy horror community I'm creating. I would really appreciate that. Regardless, thank you so much for checking out this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.